Okay, good morning. So today we're going to look at the week's readings and the assignments that are due. First of all is the mini mural. And the mini mural, and then let me turn the light on. It's dark. Oh, not much better. Anyway, the mini mural is just that. It is a visual statement or narrative of an idea, to express an idea through images. So this is to put yourself in the shoes of one of the artists. Here you are with a blank canvas in front of you and an idea, and how do I express it? So let's say you don't know how to draw. Then you just cut collage, cut pictures out of a magazine, newspaper, internet, or Photoshop or something like that, just to find a way to express ideas through images. That's the idea. So put yourself, okay, I'm Frida, and this is my pain. This is my joy. These are the things I enjoy. I'm Diego, and here's the state of the world this morning. Here's my history, my past. Anything like this, any idea. So the idea is just to kind of put yourself in the shoes of an artist and try to feel what it is to create something. And people get really mad at me when they start this. They're going, oh, this is stupid, this is impossible, I think. But a lot of people find it rewarding because you kind of understand the creative process a little bit, what artists are going through and how they express ideas and how good it feels at the end when you create it. So that's the idea. So just post it. There's two places, one to post for a grade and the other if you want to share it with the other student so they can comment. So is that clear? Anybody have any questions about that assignment, the mini mural? No. So in the past, people have turned in everything from, a pencil sketch to a collage to a shoebox, any kind of anything you can put together. Mamun was trying to be very slick, and she, in our lecture class, she brought a bus transfer. I could see that she didn't prepare, so she got a bus transfer, put with a piece of gum, stuck it on a piece of paper. So this bus transfer is my freedom. This allows me, kind of like the diver in the Pan American Unity. This allows me to travel, to transcend barriers of time and space with the bus transfer. So anyway, that's kind of the idea, is to use a visual image. So let's move on. So this week we're talking about the Cuban Revolution. So the Cuban Revolution was unique in Latin America because this is the first socialist revolution in the Americas, happening close to the United States. And one of the things that happens in the Cuban Revolution is that we see an uprising similar to other uprisings that we've seen in the Mexican Revolution. But in this case, the revolutionaries had a clear plan of how they wanted to administer the country's resources. So Fidel Castro and the revolutionaries rise up in 1953, an uprising of students mainly to take over the Moncada barracks, an army barracks. And what was important about this is they were a group of students. They weren't soldiers, they weren't dedicated revolutionaries, they were students who were a privileged group at the time. Students were seen as the part of the elite who were going to go on to be the country's leaders, and here they are rising up with rifles, which shows that something's not right in the country. They're captured. Most of them are captured, or many of them killed, because they're students and their attack isn't well planned. Later, they're exiled to Mexico, where they begin organizing to return and invade Cuba along with Ernesto Che Guevara. And in their plan, They return to Cuba and invade the country. They leave for Mexico in a small yacht. And again, they're not well organized, so they're ambushed almost right away. And out of the 85 people that travel, only 12 of them survive. They're able to organize and go up into the mountains and create a guerrilla movement. And the idea, so 12 badly armed, badly trained people going up against a well-trained army of 50,000, they're able to defeat the organized army by gaining support from the country people, from the peasants, from different sectors of society that are also opposed to the Batista dictatorship. And by fighting a small guerrilla war, again, fighting using very, how would you say, counterintuitive methods, the guerrilla forces are able to gain support from the peasants. So the way that they're able to gain support, again, how do armed men gain the support of country people? Well, people that live in the mountains, they're used to being isolated. They're used to being taken advantage of by armed men. And all of a sudden, a group of armed men, bearded men, come along, and they have a doctor, and they're willing to cure the sick, and they teach them how to read, help them with their chores, buy food, things like this. So they're able to gain, through their moral authority, their moral example, gain support of the peasants, and able to create a base of support in the mountain areas and fight off the soldiers. And this creates a huge momentum in the country as people hear, again, it cracks the aura of invincibility of the dictatorship, and they're able to mobilize a guerrilla movement all over the country. And January 1st, 1959, they march into Havana victorious, along with Che Guevara. And the first thing that the revolution proposes is to create a new society. And Che Guevara and Fidel also talk about this early on. Now, this utopian vision that they propose a new society, basically a society without money, a society where people will be paid not through material rewards, but through spiritual rewards. And this sounds almost impossible. How could you have a society without money? And Che Guevara proposes that in the new society, the only way that a revolution will be successful is not only through political, economic, and social changes, but through a change in the way that people treat each other on a one-to-one basis. So that the revolution will be successful when people are able to transform the way they interact on a daily basis. And this is something almost impossible, almost this utopian dream, right? To create, again, a society where human rights are defined differently than in many Western countries. Human rights, according to the Communist Manifesto that Karl Marx proposes, human rights would be the right to housing, the right to food, the right to health care, the right to work, and the right to culture. So by defining these as human rights, as the rewards of citizens or people in the country that participate in the productive process, they're kind of redefining the goals in society. So in a capitalist society, we see that attaining material rewards is the ultimate goal, that accumulating wealth and material goods, where in the socialist society, what they're proposing is that people would be able to fulfill their human potential, be able to study for free, to free themselves from the tyranny of manual labor, using technology again to benefit humanity. So this is the idea that they propose. And in the 1960s, they begin to create cultural movements that support these goals. So the early painters, the early artists of all kinds are given a task in the first meeting of Fidel Castro with the country's intellectuals, which is one famous get-together that many people argue that Fidel really wasn't prepared for this because he hadn't really thought about intellectuals and artists. Again, he's looking how to feed people, how the missile crisis, war with the United States, the Soviet Union, and all these different things that are going on. Artists and intellectuals not so important. So he has a meeting in 1961 with the country's artists and intellectuals, and they ask, so what about us? What are we supposed to do? What's our role in this revolutionary process? We're ready to participate, but what are we supposed to do? So Fidel makes a famous statement that you can read in the Art and Revolution book. Within the revolution, everything; outside the revolution, nothing. So what does this mean? Well, people interpret this, well, Che says that we should denounce injustice and hypocrisy and corruption wherever we see it. We should support these revolutionary ideals and use our art to do that. And this becomes the mission of artists, to use their art as a means of examining, again, Cuban society, what it is to be Cuban, Cuban history, similar to what happened in Mexico. But the difference, instead of using public art, murals, which are really not as possible in the Caribbean, that has frequent hurricanes and humid weather, the paint doesn't dry evenly. It's difficult to do murals. Plus, there aren't that many public walls. So we see the public art that begins in Cuba is using poster art, and posters are put up, are portable, are disposable, are quickly done, and they're very public. They can be put up and taken down and saved, and they're marking many times events, right? That they're commemorating the event, but they're also summarizing. You'll see in the examples of Cuban poster art, the way that they're kind of encapsulating that event within the time period of what's going on in what they call the coyuntura, which is the current events, what's going on at that moment. So we see the Cuban artists also begin to incorporate, instead of the social realism that we see in Mexico or the styles coming out of the Soviet Union, they begin to borrow from pop art in the United States. Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol and others, who are borrowing some of the vibrancy, the colors of modern advertising, and the colors that reflect the optimism of the 60s. Again, the 1960s were a time where people were very optimistic that technology, the beginnings of technology entering society, becoming a factor in society, TV, radio, becoming really important in people's lives, offers this optimism that life is going to be different for this generation than generations before, where people had previously thought that their lives were going to be similar to the lives of their parents or their grandparents. But in this case, people think that it's going to be different, that things are going to be better and different, that technology is going to make a difference. So there's this optimism that's expressed in the bright colors of the posters and in the pop art. And Cuban artists begin to follow the guidelines of using revolutionary techniques, of kind of breaking the boundaries of bourgeois formalism, of the European aesthetics. We see the work of Mendive that you'll see on our site that begins to explore the African identity, the mythology of Afro-Cuban cultures. Again, painting the picture, the portrait of a Cuban. Who is a Cuban? What does a Cuban look like? So these are some of the things, and we can see that the artists, by the 1980s, there's a group of artists who've been trained in art schools, and there's huge emphasis on cultural education and preparing very professional artists. And these artists, by the 1980s, there's a huge generation of people who've graduated, who've studied for years and years, have gained extremely advanced technique and begin expressing themselves. But they find that gallery administrators and the people who display art are not really open to their ideas, that many of them are seen as critical. Well, where these artists are seeing themselves as exploring the ideas of Che and being revolutionaries, The gallery administrators are not so sympathetic. And many of the generation of the 80s who have achieved, again, this technical virtuosity end up leaving Cuba, where they're able to make money and to explore new possibilities. And we see by the 90s, the special period, artists facing extreme challenges in getting materials and things like this. The fall of the Soviet Union transforms Cuba, and we see the beginning of a tourist industry. So the nature of art changes also, because now we have tourists going around who are interested in paintings, and being a painter really changes, and we see people creating kind of a tourist art. So, and the two questions: how did the Cuban Revolution spark a new cultural movement? You can look in the readings and look at the way that these changes in society, the way that they might have inspired people to work in new ways. First, to explore their identity, to explore their history, and again, also to look at the existential crisis of somebody living in a socialist society, a society where you're forced to share with others, to sacrifice your own needs for those of others, which is always, anybody that's lived in a big family, that you always have to give up something for your siblings, for your family, and it's a problem. People, it's an existential problem. So these are some of the ways. So that the Cuban Revolution also opens up new institutions, art schools, cultural centers, offering free art classes and cultural training for people, and a path even to be a professional artist or on salary. So also the creation of the Conjunto Folclórico Nacional, the national folklore troupe, gives prestige to people who had been marginal people, who had performed folk traditions, had been kind of on the margins of society, now are given prestige and recognition in the national folklore troupe that has the prestige of a ballet or an opera. So this would be the equivalent of taking, bluegrass, country, rap music, breakdancing, and all of this, and giving these people prestige, having them performing in theaters and things like this. So how did Cuban art seek to reimagine Cuban identity? We can see artists begin to look at the Cuban perspective. What is the perspective of Cubans, and how do they see the world? What's the frame? What's the view of the Cuban? And we can see in many, many different pieces of art, especially the work of Mendive, who begins to explore through the myths of the Santeria, of the syncretic religions, the African religions that are alive in Cuba, how they begin to see the world again through another vision, through an African lens. So anybody have any questions about any of this? Comments? You can either chat or turn on your microphone.
Wow. So go ahead.
Anybody?
About the idea, though, the Santeria, the Santeria Cuban, that was at the same time the mixed with Afro-Cuban, when they, it's one of the things they express their movement too, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is, in before the revolution, we have to look at slavery ended very late in Cuba.
Yeah, but at the same time, the Spain people, let the Cubans do their things, like let it free a little bit. At the same time, they are slaveries, and the Spain, they let it go. Like, okay, these people do the music or the stuff, all the things they do, the Afro-Cubans in that moment. Or I must be mistaken.
The thing is that what happens is, as Africans are brought to Cuba in the 16th century, again, they're forced to be baptized as soon as they come because of the Inquisition and the rules of the church. So people are brought into the church, and they create their own syncretic religions using Catholicism as a cover to practice their own religion, kind of fusing the two religions, right? So the saints, for instance, the patron saint of Cuba is La Virgen de la Caridad de Cobre.
Yes.
Who is syncretized with Ochun, the African goddess of love, the Yoruba goddess of love, the goddess of the sweet water, the natural water of the river, who wears the color gold. So that these two are syncretized and fused. So what happens during the revolution is that these religions become, which also have their music and their dance and become the frame of reference for many Cubans, become kind of involved in the process. So artists begin to look at the world through this lens, right? And this is kind of the work of Mendive and some of the other artists as they begin to
that's what I'm trying to say. Like the Spain let the Africans practice their own culture, their own religion, but always focusing their side of the Catholic Church. So but they keep in their culture.
Right. So this is how they're kind of expressing it. So this is something new that happens. So this is one of the ways that Cubans are reimagining Cuban identity, is they're beginning to reference the African past that had been ignored previously.
Yeah, that's correct.
Anybody have any other comments or questions?
I just joined the meeting. I was somewhere else waiting. So
okay, sorry about that. Here you are. So any questions or comments? Anything you want to know? Or you can hang on for a minute after everyone leaves, and we can. I taped what we just did also.
Oh, okay. If I can look at it, that's great.
Sure. Anybody have any questions, comments, anything they want to clarify of what to do, or?
Not me anymore. I just was my daughter about the religion, about how they treat the Afro and Cuban. But you just clarified my question. Thank you.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm going to send out an email about this, is next week we're going to have a mural walk. So if you're interested in doing that, going on the mural walk, just RSVP. And that's going to be on the 14th, which is a Saturday. And we'll just walk and look at the murals in the Mission. And we're going to meet on 24th and Harrison. And then maybe we'll go eat tacos or something and hang out for a minute and look at the murals up close. And usually if on a Saturday morning, we'll run into some muralists who might be painting there, and we can talk to them. Yeah. So I'll send out something about that. So if you have any questions if you're having trouble with your research paper, let me know. I've read many of these, and I can help you find sources, and I can help you clarify things. So just email me if you have any questions or doubts about this.
Yeah, I will email it to you.
Anything else? Anybody have anything else they want to bring up?
Well, can I just talk to you a little bit after everybody else is done with this subject?
Okay. All right. So everybody else, just say goodbye, and I'll continue. Who is this that's talking?
Oh, my name is Lori. I think Christy said so. There's no office hours next week, though. Like on the Zoom, on the chat. I think that was a question that she had.
Oh, no, I'll be here next week. That's
okay.
Right, because we're going to be at the Mural Walk. That's right. I'll make it earlier, a little earlier. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so is that somebody talking?
No. So okay. So everybody say goodbye except for
Lori.
Lori, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone else sign off. Say goodbye.
Okay. Bye. Yeah, I mean, I don't care if anybody hears. I just, wanted everybody to get done with, the more pertinent questions.
Right.
So yeah, I just wanted to touch base with you. I'm really far behind, but I want to work my way back up. I mean, it's not like I can't do the work. It's just, you know how it is. It's just hard to do it. I mean, hard to.
Sure.
Time management stuff.
So basically, if you're able to finish the assignments by the end of the semester, that'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm just gonna I'm gonna try to I'm gonna get more of the reading done, and then kind of make some headway into the assignments, and then I think I'll probably have a better bird's eye view for the research paper. I mean, I know I put myself in a bad position because it's like I'm going to have to be like starting and doing like a lot of this stuff almost simultaneously, but yeah, I'm totally gonna do my best. I think it's sorry.
The good thing is that all the answers are in the readings. There's no trick questions here. It's all there in the readings. So as you do the readings and as you go through it, you'll see that it'll be pretty easy to do the assignments. Look at the readings. You'll find that there's no surprises, and all the answers are right there.
Okay.
The readings, you would have a hard time. You probably get these wrong, and I can tell immediately who was reading, who wasn't, when they because people are just spouting off, blah 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 blah. I'm going like, okay, you didn't do the reading because you missed the point here. So you'll see if you kind of take notes, look at the assignments and take notes as you're doing the reading, you'll find the answers right there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. I think the first paper, the only, I think, one that I turned in, like, when you graded it, that I really saw that. I was like, oh, okay. It was, and it's cool because it's a really interesting topic. I mean, I've lived so long and, in this country, and I just feel really crazy for never having had an interest in this history. I mean, it's really amazing.
Yeah.
So
what you can do is also write me through the course email and just tell me that you're catching up. And so I'm clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that when I RSVP. I'll do this. I'll combine that.
Yeah. So you'll make it. Yeah. Don't sweat it. You'll get it.
Okay. Thank you so much for bringing this to me.
Okay, no problem. Okay.
Okay. Have a good Saturday.
You too. Enjoy. Bye.
Bye.